The moment my stepfather grabbed the microphone at my graduation and said, "It's a miracle she even made it," I felt something inside me break. Everyone laughed. Not the kind laugh that fills a room with warmth. The kind that slices through you. I was standing there in my cap and gown, diploma still shaking in my hand. 4 years of sleepless nights, part-time jobs, scholarships and silence, all reduced to a punchline. He went on. "You wouldn't believe how many times I told her she'd never make it to college. Guess she proved me wrong barely." More laughter. My mother smiled tightly beside him. She always smiled like that when she didn't want to fight. I kept my face still. I had learned that skill young. My stepfather had been in my life since I was 8. He never hit me, never screamed in public. He just chipped away at me quietly. Every report card was, "Not good enough." Every dream was, "Too big for someone like you." Every success came with a reminder that I should be grateful he allowed me to stay under his roof. He paid for nothing. I earned scholarships. I worked weekends at a grocery store. I studied while everyone slept. And still, he took credit. When the principal invited family members to say a few words, he practically ran to the stage. He talked about his guidance, his discipline, his role in shaping my future. I felt invisible. And then he said the words that made the room go quiet. "She's lucky I stepped up when her real father walked away." My throat burned. I had asked my mother about my biological father my whole life. She always said he left before I was born. That he didn't care. That he didn't want me. So I built my life without him. But hearing my stepfather use that absence as a weapon, on the one day that was supposed to be mine, it hurt in a way I can't explain. I stared at the floor, and that's when I heard a voice from the back of the auditorium. "She's not lucky. She's strong." The room turned. A man stood near the doors. Late 40s maybe. Calm. Steady. My stepfather frowned. "And you are?" The man didn't look at him. He looked at me and said, "I'm her father." The silence that followed was heavy. You could hear every breath in the room. My mother's face drained of color. My stepfather laughed nervously. "Excuse me." The man walked forward slowly, confidently. He wasn't angry, he wasn't loud. He didn't need to be. "I never walked away," he said. "I was never told she existed." My heart was pounding so hard I thought I might faint. He explained, calmly, that he and my mother had broken up before she knew she was pregnant. That she moved away. That he tried to find her years later and couldn't. That 3 months ago, he received a message from someone who knew the truth. My aunt. Apparently, she'd felt guilty for years. She found him online. Sent him my graduation announcement. He showed printed emails, dates, attempts to contact, even letters that had been returned unopened. He wasn't guessing. He had proof. The room had shifted now. The laughter was gone. My stepfather tried to interrupt. "This is inappropriate." "No," the man said gently. "What's inappropriate is humiliating a young woman on the day she earned everything herself." He turned to me again. "I've watched from a distance these past few months. I saw your scholarship award, your job, your honors. You did all of that without support you should have had. And I'm sorry for every year I missed." There was no dramatic music, no movie moment. Just truth. My mother started crying. Not loudly. Just small, shaking breaths. For the first time in my life, my stepfather had nothing to say. The principal, clearly overwhelmed, handed the microphone to the man. He didn't boast. He didn't insult. He just said, "I am proud of my daughter, my daughter." No sarcasm, no backhanded compliment, no conditions. Just pride. And that's when something shifted inside me. I walked to the stage slowly. Took the microphone from my stepfather's frozen hands. "I didn't grow up with a father who believed in me," I said, my voice steady. "But I grew up believing in myself. And today proves that's enough." I paused. "And for the record, I paid for my own tuition. I earned my own grades. And I never needed permission to succeed." The applause started small. Then it grew. People stood. My stepfather sat down, silent. After the ceremony, the man, my father, didn't pressure me. He didn't demand anything. He just asked if I'd like coffee sometime to talk. I said yes. It's been a year since that day. We're building something slow, careful, real. As for my stepfather, he never apologized. But he never mocked me again either. Because the truth had exposed him in front of everyone he wanted to impress. And that was the sweetest part. He tried to define my worth in front of a crowd. Instead, he revealed his own. And I walked off that stage not just as a graduate, but as someone who finally knew she was never abandoned. She was hidden. And now, I'm seen. For years, I thought silence was my only defense. until the day the truth stepped into the room and spoke my name. After the ceremony, everything felt unreal. People who had laughed at my stepfather's jokes avoided eye contact. Teachers who barely knew my home life hugged me a little tighter. Even my friends whispered, "Are you okay?" Like I just survived something dangerous. Maybe I had. My biological father didn't rush me. He stood a few feet away, giving me space. Like he understood that trust isn't built in dramatic moments, it's built in quiet ones. My stepfather stormed out before anyone could question him. That night, the house felt different, smaller. He didn't yell. That was never his style. He just moved around loudly, cabinet doors slamming, heavy footsteps, the television volume too high. My mother sat at the kitchen table, staring at nothing. Finally, he spoke. "So now you have a new hero." I looked at him calmly. I wasn't the little girl waiting for approval anymore. "I don't need a hero," I said. "I needed honesty." That shut him up. Over the next few weeks, things unraveled slowly. My father, I was still getting used to calling him that, showed me copies of old letters he had sent to our old address. My mother admitted she had hidden them. She said she was scared. Scared he would fight for custody. Scared of losing control. Scared of being judged. Fear had built my childhood, and ego had ruled it. My stepfather hated that people in town now knew the truth. His coworkers had seen the graduation clip online. Someone posted it. The moment my father said, "I never walked away," had spread fast. He couldn't control that narrative, and control was everything to him. But here's the thing about quiet revenge. It doesn't look like revenge at all. It looks like growth. My father didn't try to buy my love. He didn't throw money at me. Instead, he asked about my plans, my goals. He listened. When I told him I had been accepted into a competitive internship program in the city, but couldn't afford the relocation costs, he said something simple. "Let me support you now. Not because you need saving, because I want to show up." There was no pressure, no guilt. Just presence. I accepted. Moving out was the real turning point. The day I packed my things, my stepfather watched from the doorway of my room. "So that's it?" he said. "You're just leaving." I folded my last sweater carefully. "I was always leaving," I replied. "You just didn't think I could." That one landed. He tried one last time. "Don't expect him to stick around." "I zipped my suitcase." "I don't," I said. "I expect myself to succeed." "That's enough." And I walked past him. In the city, life wasn't magically perfect. The internship was hard. The hours were long. I made mistakes. But every time I doubted myself, I heard two voices in my head. One said, "You'll never make it." The other said, "I'm proud of my daughter." Guess which one got louder over time? Months later, I received a full-time job offer from that same company. A real salary. Benefits. Stability. The kind of opportunity my stepfather used to say was, for other people. When I posted the announcement online, the comments poured in. "Congratulations. So proud of you. You deserve this." Even my old high school principal commented with a clapping emoji. My stepfather saw it. I know he did. Because for the first time in my life, he sent me a message. 3 words. I was wrong. No apology, no long speech, just that. And strangely, I didn't need more. The real payoff wasn't humiliating him. It wasn't shouting back. It wasn't exposing him further. It was knowing he couldn't take credit anymore. At family gatherings now, when relatives talk about my job, they don't look at him. They look at me. When someone asks how I did it, I don't mention the insults or the doubt. I just say, I worked for it. Because that's the truth. As for my father, we meet for dinner every Sunday when I'm in town. We're still learning each other. There are awkward moments. Lost years we can't get back. But there's effort. And effort means everything. One evening, he told me something that stayed with me. "I don't want to rewrite your past," he said. "I just want to be part of your future." No grand gestures, no dramatic confrontations, just consistency. And that's what real love looks like. Looking back, I realized my stepfather's biggest mistake wasn't underestimating me. It was assuming I needed his approval to become something. He tried to shame me in front of a crowd. Instead, he handed me the moment that exposed the truth. He wanted to stand tall on my achievements. Now he stands quiet in the shadow of them. And me, I'm not angry anymore. Because the girl he mocked on that stage didn't just graduate. She outgrew. Strangest part wasn't that my stepfather stopped mocking me. It was that he started being careful around me. Careful with his words. Careful with his tone. Like he finally understood I wasn't someone he could shrink anymore. A few months after I started my new job, there was a community fundraiser back in my hometown. The same auditorium. The same stage, different purpose. I almost didn't go, but my mother called and asked me to attend. It would mean a lot, she said softly. There was something different in her voice too, less control, more humility. When I walked into that auditorium again, I felt the memory of that graduation day in my chest. The laughter, the heat in my face, the way I wanted to disappear. But this time I didn't shrink. People greeted me differently. They used words like inspiring and hardworking. I saw pride in their eyes, not pity. And then I saw him. My stepfather was standing with a few local business owners. When he noticed me, he straightened up. For years, I had been the invisible kid trailing behind him. Now people were approaching me first. Halfway through the event, the organizer tapped the microphone and said they wanted to recognize young professionals who had made an impact after graduating. My name was called. I froze for a second. Then I walked up. No shaking hands this time. They spoke about my internship, my full-time role, the project I helped lead that brought jobs into our region. They mentioned scholarships I had started contributing to for other girls from difficult homes. That part mattered most to me, because while I was building my career, I quietly set aside a portion of every paycheck. Not to prove anything, not to show off, but to make sure no girl had to hear, "You'll never make it," and believe it. When they handed me the microphone, I scanned the crowd. I saw my mother, eyes glossy. I saw my father, standing in the back, not pushing forward, just watching. And I saw my stepfather, waiting, maybe expecting me to use this moment to embarrass him the way he embarrassed me. That would have been easy. I could have told the whole story again. I could have reminded everyone how he laughed, how he minimized me, how he claimed credit. Instead, I took a breath and said something else. Success is quiet at first, I said. It grows in the dark. In the moments no one claps for. In the nights you cry alone. And one day, it walks into the light, not angry, not loud, just undeniable. The room was still. I didn't get here because someone believed I would, I continued. I got here because I decided I would. I handed the microphone back. No attack, no revenge speech. But when I stepped off that stage, I walked past my stepfather, and he couldn't meet my eyes. That was the moment I knew. Not because he looked ashamed, but because he looked small. And I didn't feel small anymore. Later that evening, he approached me outside near the parking lot. No audience. This time, he said. I almost laughed. No, I replied calmly. I grew. He nodded slowly, like he was trying to understand something too big for him. You don't hate me? He asked, almost defensively. I thought about that. For years, I did. But hate ties you to the person who hurt you. And I was done being tied to him. I don't need to, I said. I'm not that girl anymore. And that was it. No dramatic reconciliation. No tears. Just distance. The real revenge wasn't exposing him. It wasn't humiliating him. It was building a life so solid that his opinion became irrelevant. My father still shows up. Every milestone. Every birthday. He never tries to replace the past. He just shows up now. My mother and I are rebuilding too. Slowly. Honestly. There are hard conversations. But there's truth now, and truth breathes better than secrets. As for my stepfather, he still lives in the same house, still works the same job, still tells stories at barbecues. But he never jokes about me anymore, because the girl he once called, lucky to make it, now funds scholarships. The girl he said would never succeed now signs contracts he doesn't understand. The girl he tried to shame on a stage now owns every room she walks into. And the sweetest part, I didn't have to destroy him to win. I just had to become everything he said I couldn't. The day he grabbed that microphone, he thought he was defining my limits. Instead, he triggered my legacy. And every time someone says my name with respect now, I remember that laughter. Not with pain, with gratitude. Because sometimes the moment meant to humiliate you becomes the moment that introduces you to your power. I thought the story ended the night he finally went quiet, but the real ending came a year later, in the most ordinary way possible. It was my promotion announcement. Not a small one. A regional leadership role. The kind of position people twice my age compete for. I had worked for it relentlessly, early mornings, late nights, courses after work, mentors, risks. No shortcuts. No favors. When the company published the announcement online, it spread fast in my hometown again. This time, there was no dramatic interruption. No shocking reveal. Just facts. My name, my title, my photo, and underneath it comments from former teachers, classmates, even local officials congratulating me. My father called first. He didn't say much, he just let out this proud, steady laugh and said, "You did it." My mother texted, "I'm proud of you." No excuses attached, just pride. And then, an hour later, my stepfather called. For a second, I considered ignoring it. But I answered. His voice sounded older than I remembered. "I saw the news," he said. "Okay," I replied calmly. There was a long pause, the kind where someone is choosing whether to protect their ego or surrender it. "I used to think pushing you down would toughen you up," he admitted. "I thought if you expected less, you wouldn't be disappointed." I didn't interrupt. "I was wrong," he said again. This time slower. Heavier. "You didn't need to be cut down to grow." That was the closest thing to an apology I was ever going to get. Years ago, I would have needed more. A speech. Regret. Tears. Now, I just needed peace. "I figured that out on my own," I said gently. He gave a small, almost defeated chuckle. "Yeah, you did." When the call ended, I didn't feel victorious. I felt free. Because revenge isn't always loud. It isn't always a public downfall. Sometimes it's a quiet shift in power that never shifts back. After my promotion, I was invited to speak at another graduation, this time as the keynote speaker. The same stage, the same auditorium. Only now, I was the one being introduced. As I waited behind the curtain, I remembered standing there years ago, diploma shaking in my hand, listening to laughter that made me question my worth. I could still hear it if I tried, but it didn't hurt anymore. When they called my name, the applause was immediate, respectful, earned. I stepped up to the microphone and looked out at the crowd, students in caps and gowns. Nervous, hopeful, fragile in that beautiful way you are before the world tests you. And I saw him in the audience, my stepfather, sitting quietly beside my mother. Not front row, not center. Just there. I began my speech simply. "Someone once told me I was lucky just to make it this far." A few polite laughs. But luck had nothing to do with it. I told them about hard work, about self-belief, about building strength in silence. I never named him. I never exposed him. I didn't need to, because everyone already knew my story. When I finished, the room stood. As I stepped off stage, my father hugged me first. "I'm proud of my daughter," he whispered again. And this time there were no missing years between us, just presence. Then my stepfather approached. His handshake was firm but different, not dominant, not performative. "Good speech," he said quietly. "Thank you," I replied. There was nothing left to prove. That's the part people don't tell you about revenge. The most satisfying kind doesn't destroy the other person. It outgrows them. The man who once tried to shrink me now sits in rooms where my name carries weight. The man who laughed at my ambition now listens when others praise it. He didn't lose his job. He didn't lose his home. He lost control of the story, and I gained ownership of it. That's the trade. Years ago, he stood on a stage and tried to define me by my absence, by a father he claimed walked away. He thought I was incomplete, but the truth walked through those doors that day and said, "She's my daughter." And in that moment, everything shifted. Not because I needed a man to claim me, but because the lie that held me small was finally exposed. Now when I walk into a room, I don't carry shame, I carry history. Strength. Proof. He once said I was lucky to make it. Now people say they're lucky to know me. And every time I hear that, I remember the girl standing on that graduation stage, swallowing humiliation, promising herself she would never stay small again. She kept that promise. That's the real ending, not his silence, not his regret. Mine. Because I didn't just